Buongiorno Italy, buongiorno tutti. Today I'm here to talk to you about development of Liferay solutions and in particular graduated development of Liferay solutions with the latest version of Liferay DXP, Liferay DXP 7.3, which we have just announced. And let's admit it, this may sound like a little bit of a boring topic or a boring title, but it's particularly interesting because what I'm going to talk about is about how we can, as Liferay developers, empower the 99%. And I'm going to give that number, 99%, with a little bit of mystery, but I'll explain it in a few seconds. But before, I wanted to talk a little bit about what do I mean by a Liferay solution. And those of you who may have been using Liferay for a while now, you know that Liferay is very versatile, that it can be used to build all sorts of solutions. And those of you who may be considering using Liferay or have just started to use it, you'll find soon enough. And over all these years, Liferay has been used for a wide variety of use cases. The four more common use cases that we are seeing in the last few years are these four: modern intranets, self-service portals that can serve, for example, to have a long relationship with customers, B2B commerce, and Liferay as an integration platform. Of course, there are many more types of solutions. There is a long tail of solutions because of this versatility that Liferay has. These are the four that we're seeing more commonly in the last few years, and these are the ones that many of you may have been building. Now, that takes us to another important question, which is, who builds these solutions? Liferay is a platform, and solutions are built on top, but who builds these solutions? Well, before answering that question, I want to talk about one specific topic, which is the 99-1 rule. This is a very well-known rule in the internet. And a generalized version of this rule is that in any large enough project with enough number of people, there is 1% of those people who are the most involved. The ones who may have the most knowledge, but definitely are the ones who do most of the work, the ones who are the builders. Then we have a much larger group, the 9%, it's almost 10 times as large as the previous group, who are also very interested in the project and who also want to participate. They may not have as much time, as much involvement, or as much knowledge, but they also do contributions from time to time. And then there is an even much wider group, the 90%. These 90% are the people who get benefit or somehow consume the results of that project, but they are not involved in an active way. Now, does this apply to Liferay? Does this apply specifically to building solutions on Liferay? And my opinion is yes, it does. The 99% rules applies when building Liferay solutions. And if that's the case, who are the 90%? Who are the 9%? Who are the 1%? Let's go one by one. First, the 1%. The 1% are the Liferay developers. Many of you who are listening to this session are one of these 1%. The 1% are the ones who, their main language is Java and JavaScript. They have a very deep skill set about Liferay portal and accompanying technologies, Portlets, Java EE, OSGI. Those are the ones that whenever they can, they come to these events, either in person or virtually. And they may be part of Liferay, the company, the community. They may work for a partner or even for IT for one of our customers. Now, who are the 9%? The 9%, which I said is a much larger group, are Liferay developers. Sorry, they are developers who are not Liferay developers. And in this case in particular, I'm choosing JavaScript developers as an example because there is a much wider number of JavaScript developers that there are Liferay developers in particular, right? So these JavaScript developers, their main language is JavaScript. They have a skill set which is focused on JavaScript. They may know React, Angular, Vue, or maybe still working with jQuery, and then know about technologies that are usually used from JavaScript applications, such as REST APIs with OpenAPI, GraphQL, etc. They may work with the IT department or a system integrator, and they have limited knowledge of Liferay. Who is the 90%? The 90% is everyone who is not a developer. And there are many of these involved in Liferay projects. These type of users, what characterizes them is that they have a very strong knowledge of the business needs, which may be the wider business needs or maybe the specific needs that in their specific work area they have. And there are many types of profiles. It could be business experts, or it could be, for example, content authors. In many types of solutions built with Liferay, content plays a very important role, and content authors are a critical role in these projects. It may be administrators of an intranet whose goal is to engage users and ensure that communication and collaboration happens. Or it could be all the end users that end up using these solutions built with Liferay. My message to you guys is, let's empower all these 99% to participate in building and evolving Liferay solutions. How do we do that? Well, we at Liferay have been discussing about this for a long while. And if you've attended some of our sessions in previous events, you know that empowering users and empowering business users along with developers has been one of our important messages and our important topics of focus in the last few versions. And as we were discussing about this, we came up with this concept of graduated development of Liferay solutions. So what is this? Basically, the idea is that it's possible to take Liferay as a platform and gradually implement a Liferay solution with a very low barrier of entry. So it's possible to start building the solution even with very minimal knowledge or nothing of Liferay. So the first few days, users who have no knowledge not only of Liferay, but also no knowledge of technology or development, they can do customization. And one of the first things is they may want to do branding. And with a new technology that we're introducing in 7.3 called the style books, they could do branding straight through the UI. Then they could define content types and forms, which has been possible for a while at Liferay, and they can configure the out-of-the-box features, because Liferay is very configurable to adapt it to their needs, which they know the best. After a few days and the next weeks, we can even start involving people with more technical knowledge. It could be some technical users, it could be web developers, and they can start creating templates with the template languages that Liferay supports. Or with a new tool that we're introducing again in 7.3 called App Builder, they can even create apps visually. They can also create fragments or even implement full design system, which I'll talk about in a little while. And then, using a new concept called remote applications, it's possible for these technical users, not necessarily developers, to be able to integrate remote applications so that for end users, they behave like regular applications in Liferay. Next step, in the next few months, then we can involve developers, JavaScript developers, Java developers, and they can start developing web apps, more unique web apps that cannot be developed visually or cannot be achieved just by configuring the UI. And these can be built as single-page applications, leveraging whatever framework of choice the specific organization building the solution has. It could be React, Angular, Vue, or some of the other new kits in the block. And these SPAs can either consume the wide variety of existing web APIs that Liferay provides, either through OpenAPI, REST APIs, or through GraphQL. And it's also quite easy, much easier than ever before, to build new APIs on top of Liferay, either using straight standards, JAX-RS, or some of our tool sets around it, like REST Builder. And then the fourth step, it's advanced development, which can happen at any point of time. It may happen way into the project when the previous phases have finished, or it can happen at any time when a very important advanced need appears. And this is done by Liferay developers, by many of you who are listening to this talk. And these are, again, the people who are very expert on Liferay, and they know how to do SGI extension points and portlets with Spring or with Portlet MVC. They can create new modules and services. Now, one very important message that I want to send with this slide is that Liferay developers and their impact is not limited to just advanced Liferay development. Liferay developers actually have in their hands the ability to empower all of the other users, because that other group of users is the 99%. So what this talk is really about is how Liferay developers can empower the 99% through their skills. So let's learn how. First, I'm going to talk about provisioning, because that's the first step, to be able to provision a UI that these non-technical users can start using. So with Liferay, you don't have to install a new version of Liferay for every site, because Liferay is multi-site, and once a Liferay installation exists, then it's just a point-and-click method to create a new site. But not only that, what if you don't want a single site? You just want a complete new environment with different users, permissions, etc., then you can leverage Liferay's multi-tenant capabilities and you can create virtual instances in one single site. And we are working towards making it, towards taking this even to another step, which is by leveraging the DXP cloud, it's possible, or it's much faster than ever, to provision a full Liferay installation, including external systems such as databases, search index, proxies, etc., thanks to Liferay DXP cloud. Now I'm going to focus with the first point, which is multi-site capabilities. Out of the box with Liferay, when a user creates a new site, it's a full new site. They are all the same because it comes out of the box with Liferay. But you as a Liferay developer can do better than that. And you can do better than that thanks to one new feature, which is called the site initializers. And a site initializer is one option that it's offered, as we can see in the screen here, to the end user whenever they say, I want to create a new site. And then there are several options. The blank site is what comes out of the box with Liferay. But it's possible to create site initializers, which provide a more use case-specific way of creating sites. Users can select them to create a new site, and developers can do whatever they want with it. They can import a whole new design system. They can create templates, pages, content. There is no limit, because a site initializer, which is very similar to the previous concept of site templates, and to the end user is the same, but it provides full control to the developer of what they want to do. At the end of the day, the way to create a site initializer is just to implement this interface, and that specific method, initialize, which is invoked whenever a site is created and the user has selected your site initializer. And in this method, you can do whatever you want as a developer. The end goal is to be able to automate the creation of sites of any complexity, focused on specific use cases, as a way to empower these business users to just focus on the customization that really matters to them within that use case. So as you can see, that's a way that developers can end up empowering these business users. Now let's move along. Once the site is created, or whenever a site is created in general, one very important topic is branding. Is how do we make this site look the way I need it to look, right? The traditional way of doing that in Liferay is just to use themes, and that's a very valid way. However, it puts all of the power in the hands of the developer. Once the theme is deployed, if any change is needed, the developer is needed again. Now, we've introduced two new functionalities to give more power to non-technical and non-developer users. Master pages and stylebooks. The first, master pages, which you can see in the screen. Master pages is very similar to the concept of master slides in PowerPoint and Keynote. Basically, it allows configuring all of the common elements that are the same across all pages or many pages in a site. It could be the header, it could be the footer, it could be a menu, it could be floating things, it could be whatever is necessary. And through a UI, it's now possible to configure this leveraging fragments. And once a master page is changed, it's automatically applied to all of the pages leveraging that master page within a full site. It's completely automatic. And there are common elements, but the next step is styling. Right? Most organizations have their own style guides that they want to leverage for this site, or a customization of it for this solution. This is something that usually the designers do. Now with this new UI, the style book editor, these users can just leverage the form that you see on the right, and they can configure the specific tokens of their style guide and immediately see a preview of how that looks in that site, in any of the pages of the site. So leveraging these two new technologies, here is some advice for Liferay developers. First of it, with 7.3, don't start new projects by creating a theme. Start with Classic, which is the theme that comes out of the box with Liferay, and leverage style books and master pages, and involve designers or non-technical users involved in branding in customizing it. In many cases, I think that this will be enough. In some cases, it will not, and you will still need to create your custom theme. Now, when you really need to create a custom theme, you can also leverage style books and master pages just like we've done with Classic. So that way, even when the theme is done, these designers can still customize and adapt the look and feel. And the reason why this can be done is because style books and master pages are developer friendly. They are not only business friendly, but they are developing friendly. How are they developer friendly? Well, they can be exported. and they can be exported to an open format. It's a JSON format that comes with a JSON schema, so it's even possible to customize it outside, and it's very easy to put it into version control systems, and you can then distribute it and reuse it as many times as needed across Liferay sites, across Liferay installations. The same for master pages. They always follow the same format. One file for the metadata, one file for the content. In this case, for master pages, the content is all of the fragments, all of the common fragments that have been added to that master page. Once we do this, we're empowering designers to customize the base design of a site. And they can either create their own masters or style books, or even if a Liferay developer initially creates them, they can still customize it further along. So if we're talking about designers, it's very important to talk about one very strong trend in the world of design, which is design systems. Many organizations, maybe the ones you work for, are already creating their own design systems or adopting design systems that have been created by other organizations. And if they haven't, they may do it in the near future. So we want to be ready for it. And in Liferay 7.3 is the first version in which we can finally say that it's possible to implement a full design system within Liferay. At the base, we have the style books to implement style guides. Then we have fragments to implement components, and then we have master pages and page templates that support the quick creation and escalation of creation of sites and pages. If you're familiar with design systems, you're probably familiar with atomic design, which is a very common explanation and one of the original explanations of design systems. If you're familiar with it, atoms are implemented through style books, molecules are implemented through fragments, and organisms can be implemented with more complex HTML fragments, or they can be implemented with a new concept called fragment compositions, which I'll talk about in a little while. And then templates are implemented with master pages and page templates. So a full design system can be implemented. And by implementing these design systems in Liferay, we are facilitating and scaling this creation of sites and experiences. So if we're talking about creation of experiences and sites, we need to talk about the new page editor. The new page editor, which was introduced in Liferay 7.1, which had a huge improvement in 7.2, we're continuing to invest on it, and it has even more improvements in 7.3. It allows non-technical users, and in this case, we're actually targeting even designers to get involved and have much more power of how a page is created. And one very important thing here is this page editor is very extensible. So we're thinking about the business users, but we are also thinking about developers and how developers can extend this page editor to be able to empower their business users. So the first thing to notice here is this bar on the left. It has a list of components, a list of fragments, a list of widgets that can be added to the page by the end user. Now, as a developer, one first step that you can do whenever you develop fragments is make them configurable. This is something that has been possible since 7.2, and we've seen a lot of very creative ways of making fragments configurable. We've changed in 7.3 the UI a little bit more so that it fits fragments that have a lot of configuration. But overall, the feature is the same, and I want to encourage any fragment developers to leverage this. It's actually quite easy. You don't have to have a lot of Liferay knowledge or expertise to make them extensible. It's just a JSON file that describes what are the configuration fields, and the UI is automatically created for you. Now, a new feature in 7.3 is fragment compositions. What a fragment composition is, as the name makes quite clear, is you can create a composition of fragments. You can put several fragments in whatever layout you want or need. You can mix fragments and widgets as well. And then that result can be saved by the end user or by the developer into something that is reusable and can be added again in the future or in any page. And fragment compositions are also developer friendly. They can also be exported if they are created with the UI, and it follows a very similar format to what we've seen for master pages. Metadata, and then a definition of what are the fragments and what are the configurations in the page. And this can be easily reused or easily controlled through version control system. So next step to extend the page editor is to acknowledge, to realize that this is not limited to just displaying content. You can create you can display many types of information through a page in Liferay. And we actually make this very, very extensible. Any type of information that can be represented with a Java class, you can create a class called a renderer, an info item renderer, that just shows or teaches the system how to convert it to HTML. And once you have this, you can leverage, or you can leverage the page editor by allowing your end users to actually display your type of information, whatever it is, right? You can even take it one step further and allow the end users to be able to select field by field of your information where they want it displayed, so through the mapping functionality that is present in the page editor. This is, again, not limited to Liferay's content types, but for any type of information that you may have in your own solution. This is done through the Info framework, which is a new framework with this specific purpose. So next step, this is just for the brave and ambitious, is what if you build your applications through the page editor, and viewing the detail of one of your items, it's not done hard-coded in your application, but it's a display page. So a business user or an end user could actually change how details are viewed in your application. Pretty powerful, right? At the end, what we want to do as developers, as Liferay developers, is empower the business users to evolve the UI. And at the same time, what we're achieving is reduce the amount of code that we have in our applications. So moving along, sometimes what you want to build is not exactly a page, but it's really an application. And in 7.3, we're introducing the App Builder. And what the App Builder allows is built on top of the technology called Data Engine that we introduced in 7.2 to allow business users to create their own application, visually create it, and then once it's ready, and it may have workflows in it, it's not linear, it can be deployed, and they can track how users are using this application. Now, as developers, what's important to know is that these applications are based on forms, and the types of forms, the type of fields of these forms, while there is a wide variety of them in Liferay out of the box, as developers, you can create your own field types. And if you create your own field types, these Liferay forms that are used in App Builder and elsewhere can be as complex as the business needs of your users. And if building these applications visually, when building this application visually is not enough, then you need to actually develop a full application. And when develop a full application, our advice, more and more, what we're seeing is building SPAs, single-page applications with leverage the REST and GraphQL APIs that are provided with Liferay. And you can use any framework you want. And Liferay, we're using React increasingly, and we're seeing many customers also adopt Angular and Vue and other frameworks very successfully. As I said, all of these applications can leverage the APIs that Liferay provides out of the box, and actually we're doing that. For our community site, we've just launched the Questions app, and the Questions app is a single-page application built with React and using Apollo to consume the GraphQL APIs that come with Liferay out of the box. In particular, the message boards APIs are leveraged by this new UI. Sometimes the APIs that come with Liferay out of the box is not enough, but it's quite easy to develop new APIs on top of Liferay. You can use an extender called JaxRS, or you can use a new tool that we provide and we support officially in 7.3, which is REST Builder. And REST Builder creates automatically a lot of the boilerplate needed by JaxRS. It's based on the OpenAPI format, and one of the cool things is that it automatically creates a GraphQL API also for you, and it can be extended to add some specifics of GraphQL. It's very powerful, and I invite you to look at it. At the end, what we're doing is empowering that 9% that has very limited or no knowledge of Liferay, doesn't have time to acquire that knowledge, to develop applications for Liferay in the form of SPAs. Just finishing, what are the key takeaways? First is we, as developers within Liferay, but also you, as Liferay developers outside, have the ability to empower the 99%. We can empower designers through stylebooks, through masters, through templates. We can empower the business users by providing them the right fragments that are configurable, the right widgets, by providing them compositions, and by leveraging the page editor to provide them a lot of power. And then at the end, we can empower JavaScript developers Java developers who don't necessarily have yet knowledge of Liferay to develop SPIs by leveraging Liferay's APIs or custom APIs that can be built with Liferay. In all of this event, we are going to see a lot of sessions that cover some of these topics in more detail. And they are going to empower you to really be able to empower your users. We hope you enjoy it. Thank you.